Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we are unpacking a deeply personal, remarkably honest piece by an author named Salima. It's titled, "The Book I Keep Trying to Buy Instead of Facing Myself." And, let me tell you, what starts out as a simple, personal confession, it quickly turns into a mirror held right up to all of us. I was absolutely hooked the second I read the source material, and honestly, I think you will be too.
Salima opens her piece with a pretty startling admission. She says, "I need to admit something. I think I have an addiction." Now, when we hear that word, our minds usually go straight to the usual suspects, right? Alcohol, drugs, gambling. We immediately kind of brace ourselves for a dark and heavy tale. But Salima quickly lowers our defenses with his brilliant bait and switch. It's totally unexpected, but it's universally relatable, because she's not addicted to any of those things.
She is addicted to books. And I don't mean just casually picking up a paperback here and there. 6,000. She owns around 6,000 books. Just let the sheer scale of that personal collection sink in for a second. To put that into perspective, that is a library that literally rivals some small towns. But, well, why is this actually a problem? Why is she calling something we usually celebrate an absolute addiction?
You see, what makes this trap so insidious is just how culturally approved it is. Think about it. Books are intellectually respectable. They're spiritually acceptable. Society literally praises readers. We admire giant bookshelves, we romanticize cozy little independent bookstores, and we just love posting pictures of our highlighted pages online to show everyone how much we're, evolving. And that right there, Salima realized, is exactly what makes them the perfect hiding place. It's a massive avoidance strategy completely wrapped up in cultural approval.
Section 1. The pattern of avoidance. So the really crucial point here is figuring out when a healthy habit crosses the line into a destructive pattern of avoidance.
Let's look at how Salima discovered the truth about her own habits. The evidence was actually hiding in plain sight, right in her bank statements, which she confronted during her monthly money date. These tiny Audible transactions, they look totally harmless, right? $6 here, $2 there, maybe 15 for a bigger title. But Salima treats these like crime scene clues. What started as just a simple monthly subscription had quietly spiraled out of control. Through tiny purchases and tiny justifications, like telling herself, oh, this one is different, or this one definitely contains the answer, she'd created a massive financial leak of over $100 every single month. And she finally had to admit it wasn't because she actually needed the information, which led to her core realization. I buy books because I struggle to sit with discomfort. Wow, it's a really powerful, highly vulnerable admission. The moment she feels lost or confused, emotionally low, or just stuck, she doesn't turn to reflection. She doesn't turn to stillness. No, she turns to consumption. She finds herself desperately browsing Oprah's recommendations or looking up productivity YouTubers, just hoping one of them will hand her the emotional key she refuses to build for herself.
This basically builds into a literal war inside her head. On one side, you have the brain, pushing super hard for a quick fix. Go check YouTube. He has 250,000 followers. He must know what he's talking about. Look, there's a discount. And then, on the other side, is what she calls her wisest self, who sounds completely exhausted, just begging, not another book, you do not need more information, you need action. It's this constant battle between the desire for an immediate discounted distraction and the plea for actual real-world embodiment.
And honestly, the irony here is just too good. During a particularly tough week, one of the books she was absolutely desperate to buy was Michael A. Singer's The Surrender Experiment. Now, the core lesson of that entire book is learning to let go. Yet, there she was, aggressively white-knuckling the buy button, intensely hoping that making just one more purchase would somehow emotionally rescue her from her feelings.
But the moment the addiction fully exposed itself to her was over this specific book, The Power of Dua by Alia Omrayan. Salima was enthusiastically recommending this new spiritual audiobook to her sister, and get this, before she even realized what she was doing, she offered to buy it for her too. She realized right then and there that her addiction isn't just about purchasing, it's about the emotional high of possibility. It's the persistent fantasy that total life transformation is always just one more book away.
Section 2. Consumption versus integration. This brings us to a really uncomfortable truth and kind of the climax of Salima's argument.
You see, the hardest realization she faced wasn't actually about the money she spent. It was about the knowledge itself. It's the constant battle between simply consuming information and actually integrating it into your life. Salima realized she already knows many of the answers she keeps desperately searching for.
Take that concept of surrender we just talked about. She didn't actually need Michael Singer's book, because Louise Hay had already taught her about surrender years ago. She literally owns Louise Hay's work, physically, digitally, and on audio. But instead of mastering the profound wisdom she already possesses in 3 different formats, her brain just blindly chases the next new thing.
Which leads to this fantastic definition. Novelty is the illusion of progress without the discomfort of change. That is an absolute light bulb moment. So why do we endlessly chase new information, new podcasts, new books? Because novelty tricks us. It makes us feel like we are moving forward without requiring us to actually change our behavior.
Here's exactly how that illusion works in practice. Buying the book feels productive. Reading a chapter feels productive. Highlighting quotes with a nice bright marker feels incredibly productive. Our brains get that sweet dopamine hit of accomplishment. We feel like we are growing and doing the work. But actually, scratch that, we are really just avoiding the real messy work of applying what we've read.
Because as Salima so aptly puts it, life only changes through integration. And integration isn't some quick dopamine hit. It is slow, it is uncomfortable, it is highly repetitive, and frankly, it is completely unglamorous. It requires sitting still long enough to actually confront yourself, without immediately reaching for your phone or your wallet to buy a brand new distraction.
Section 3. Interrupting the cycle. So, how do we break out of this? How do we stop hiding behind a giant stack of unread self-help books?
Let's look at the actionable and, for Salima, rather radical steps she took to interrupt this deeply ingrained cycle of consumption. First, she tackled that financial leak head-on. She took that $100+ a month she would normally spend impulsively on Audible, and she invested it instead. And what's really crucial to note here is her mindset. She didn't do this as a punishment for being bad with money. It was simply a redirection of her resources and her energy.
Then, she implemented this 3-step framework whenever the urge to buy hit her. Step 1, pause before purchasing. Just stop. Step 2, sit with the discomfort instead of immediately medicating it with a new download. And step 3, ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? By following these exact steps, she started finding the answers in the journaling she'd been skipping, the prayers she'd been rushing through, and the silence she'd been constantly filling with noise.
Section 4. Examining your own patterns. Now I want to pivot the lens of this explainer directly onto you. I'm going to slow down for a second here.
Because this isn't just about Salima's Audible account. It's about us. Salima presents these next questions not as a lecture, but as a mirror. Let's look into it. Question 1. What is your version of the book addiction? Maybe it's not books. Maybe it's endlessly scrolling through productivity hacks on social media or hoarding online courses you never start, or constantly buying new fitness gear without ever actually working out. What do you consume endlessly that feels like progress but secretly just keeps you perfectly comfortable?
Question 2. Is there wisdom you already own that you haven't fully applied yet? Seriously, think about it. Is there a profound takeaway from a past conversation, a book you read last year, or just a sudden moment of clarity you had on a walk that you completely ignored because it was just too hard to implement? Question 3. What are you actually feeling in those precise moments when you reach for the next thing to consume? Are you bored? Are you lonely? Are you feeling like an imposter at work? Try to identify that raw, uncomfortable emotion you are trying so desperately to escape.
And finally, question 4, what would happen if just this once you sat with the discomfort instead of trying to instantly solve it? What if you just let the uncomfortable feeling exist and let yourself be in it without buying a $15 emotional bandage to cover it up?
You know, Salima makes it clear that discovering all this wasn't some triumphant victory lap. It didn't instantly cure her life. It was simply a receipt of honest awareness. She finally saw her pattern clearly enough to put a name to it. Because awareness, honest, truly uncomfortable awareness, is where actual freedom begins.
We'll end this explainer with a thought that Salima referenced, kind of putting her own spin on the famous philosopher Socrates. An unexamined life is not worth living. But an examined life, that's where everything begins. So, I leave you with that challenge. What pattern will you finally confront today? Take a moment, step away from the screen, and examine it. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you on the next one.